Greg, thanks for joining us today. Just as a matter of introduction, Greg, you're the director of the Duro Group. A sort of housing provider is a good way of describing the business, from garage doors to window frames to trusses to modular housing, an entire sort of set of solutions for that industry. As a summary of what you've done with Sage ERP X3, you're running about 13 branches today, in excess of 100 users on X3. Probably scaling to about 150 as you progress. And just tell us a little bit about the key features of X3 that really make it work for the group.
We selected X3 primarily for its flexibility, its the simplicity of the implementation, which was critical for us given the lack of systems foundation within Duro prior to X3. We needed something that would where the change management aspects of the implementation would be limited as far as possible given the lack of skills internally. And X3 is essentially over-delivered in that respect. When one starts in a business where there's a foundation of operational processes built around a system where the upgrade to a new system is incremental, it's far easier to transition and foresee where you need to be in the new system than it was for us with X3. So we started with zero base. We needed a system that, to the extent that we made bad decisions in the initial planning phase, subsequent changes wouldn't be costly, would be simple to execute. And that has certainly been the case with X3.
Sure, and in terms of the modules you're running at the moment, I think you're running finance, distribution and manufacturing.
Correct.
For the entire organisation. What modules are you really finding absolutely critical on a daily basis for your own management of the business?
Well, fundamentally, the production management side of it has been critical. We came from a very manual environment where we had limited visibility with regards to our real production costs, and ultimately product costings. So by systemizing these elements within X3, it's allowed us to cost our products more accurately, to establish lead times more meaningfully, and ultimately offer a better customer service.
Now, the tough question: when you started looking around for an ERP system, I mean, there's a fair amount of choice in South Africa today. Who did you have a look at, and what were the reasons you chose X3?
We considered Syspro as an option, given our previous experience with it in some of our sister businesses, associate companies rather, but felt that it was too limited for our requirements in Duro, both from a functionality perspective, but more so from a flexibility perspective. We'd had experience customizing it for one of our other businesses in particular. We also looked at Oracle's JD Edwards. From a functionality perspective, it could offer us what X3 proposed, but at significantly greater cost and without the flexibility. And then at SAP. SAP was the third one we looked at. Cost was prohibitive. We didn't pursue the investigation too much further because the gap was too wide to consider.
Excellent. And I know that you and I have spent some time together, and one of your favourite features of X3 is the requester. Maybe you can describe how you use the requester and what for.
Yeah, in the systems I've had experience with in the past, reports are static perspectives on history. X3 has a unique feature in that its requesters are essentially live reports, which are slices of information from the system for specific users who the information is relevant to their job, and they can act on that information. So, for example, in our dispatch environment, we have a requester that shows our dispatch staff all orders that are shippable in full. And they can execute those orders from the requester and ship from the requester directly. And that's valuable. So they're not drawing manual reports and then saying, oh, well, that order's ready to ship, let's ship it, then going into another module to ship it. It can be done directly from the requesters, which is time saving, and it makes it easy for new users who aren't that computer literate, as is the case with our staff, to transition onto a new system. The remote access is something I use on my iPad quite successfully.
So you're logging into X3 from your iPad?
Yeah, using a basic remote desktop tool, and it works perfectly. Another thing that's been a fantastic element of X3 for us is a product configurator. One of our key challenges in the go live was the fact that we sat with 20-odd thousand SKUs, stock codes, in our old system with bills of material that were largely inaccurate. So we had to look at a process where we would need to recreate all the bills of material from scratch. The problem is the time frame required to do it manually, individually, and the resources internally would have made it next to impossible. We needed a way to automate it.
Finally, what's it been like working with Sage and with the Sage partners?
The conference room pilot process was unique in that we built business processes in real time in a boardroom with the key staff that support that business process, our project team as well as the consultants, and the result was functional. So after a week of conference room piloting, I would say we had 85% of our business processes modeled in X3.
Greg, thank you very much for the conversation today. We really appreciate your time.
Pleasure.
Thank you.